RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us again. This is our weekly 30-minute question and answer show. Your questions on diet, training, supplementation. Of course, the Arnold Classic, hard to believe, is just around the corner in, say, about 5 weeks this day going forward. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, you are in sunny Cape Coral, Florida. Here, however, it is a bit of a different story. We are undergoing an epic blizzard. It took me about an hour to get to my office. It usually takes about 10 minutes. And, of course, we had an injury as a result of that earlier in the day. Evan Centopani posting on social media earlier in the day that he slipped on ice and tore his quad, something, unfortunately, you're very familiar with.
Yes, unfortunately. I love to be validated in the decisions that I make in life, and this is one of those days that I've been validated for living in a nice, warm climate. Now I know why the old people go down there when they get older, because they're injured. They don't want to get any more injured, and so I've escaped. Hopefully, my body will thank me for it. Unfortunately, Evan Centopani seemed to have slipped on ice, from what I understand. Him and I were texting back and forth a little earlier today, and he tried to catch his balance. It's happened to me before, where I almost tore my quad doing something like similar. And because he's so big, and when you try to, catch yourself, sometimes the best thing to do is just go down. But your natural instincts is to try to catch your balance, and I guess his quad just exploded at that point. And it might have been weak to begin with. We don't know. He doesn't know. When it's cold out, a lot of times those tendons become a little more brittle. He had the surgery, I believe, a day or two ago now, and they reattached the quad. He's on the heel. I saw a picture of him laying in a hospital bed. They show his quad with a little bandage on it, and it looks very reminiscent of mine. And the terrible thing is, right when they first fixed the quad, it actually looks bigger, than it did before, because it's all swelled up. But I got to tell you, his doesn't look that bad. It really doesn't. I mean, he doesn't have as much swelling as I figured he would have. So, he's got those steel joints usually. So he'll probably heal pretty well from this. He'll be another Branch Warren back in the gym in like 6 weeks, and on his way on the mend. Once again, it's terrible to happen, because it's probably the worst injury you can possibly have. And I told him, I said, I know you're in pain now. I said, but the pain will be gone in by 5 days. But then the real pain starts when physical therapy takes place. So we all wish him, obviously, a speedy get well and healing. And sometimes, you need this time to reflect on your life. And when you have an injury like that, and it takes away the thing that you love most, which for him was bodybuilding, it's tough. Luckily, he's got a great family. He's got a kid, to take his mind off things. But, it's always in the back of your head, hey, am I going to be able to get back on stage? Am I going to be able to be as good as I was? And I think we'll find out, obviously. But I suspect, I know Evan's a fighter. I know he'll make this a challenge, and he'll probably come back better from this than he was before.
Obviously, sending our very best to Evan Centopani as he recovers from a quad injury. Again, if you want to ask a question, you can join us on the RxMuscle.com Muscle Central Forum. If you're not already a member, it is free to register. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we ask that you hit the subscribe button below, like this episode, and ask your question on the chat box on the right-hand side of the video player. Instagram, our official Facebook page, and, of course, tweeting using hashtag AskDave. We start in the Muscle Central Forum and go to Tavares_15. Hello, Dave. I am a 26-year-old bodybuilder and now studying for medical school. I'm doing your detox diet for 2 months now, including 2 to 3 cheat meals per week. I can only go to the gym 3 times a week now. What is your suggestion about muscular group training in ABC training? How many sets should I be doing per body part in this type of training? My goal right now is to maintain my health while studying. I'm not focusing on building muscle and cutting fat.
Come on, man. I went to med school. I got to the gym 5 days a week. You can do it too. Look, if you only have 3 days to go, what I recommend is, I'm on the 3-day schedule now, because I have a baby and I have a lot of responsibilities, and I just can't be away that long. So I go 3 days a week. I do my legs and my chest on one day. I do back and triceps on another day, and I do shoulders and biceps and forearms on the third day. And then I also do calves twice a week on 2 of those days. So I'm getting all my body parts in. Obviously I'm not training legs as hard as I used to these days because of the quad, that I'm still nursing. But I seem to be able to get everything done. And sometimes it makes the session a little longer because you're doing more body parts, but you know what? You're getting 4 days of rest a week too, so you're recovering much better. How many sets should you do? I don't know. Everyone's different. I feel less is better. 12 sets for big body parts, 6 to 8 sets for smaller, like, arms and stuff like that. So it's really up to you. I wouldn't be in the gym more than an hour and a half. If you should be able to get your workout done in 90 minutes. Even if you're only training 3 days a week.
He also wants to know what type of dry, low-sugar fruits can he eat while studying healthy snacks that you would recommend?
To me, fruits are not good. I used to, back in the day, they didn't really have that many protein powders. Joe Weider made a Mega Mass 2000, it was called. And I would take, it used to come with a shovel. It was a cup serving. You have to do like 2 of them. It was like 1,000 calories, like a scoop. I would take one of those scoops, seriously, I would mix it with like 3 whole eggs. I would put in like a cup of oatmeal and like a huge handful of raisins. Those things were sweetened so well you didn't need to, but you can add some packets of Splenda to your liking. And I would mix it all together. And it would make like almost like a cake batter because it was really thick. I didn't put any water in it. It was just the eggs. I might have used a little bit of water. I think I put eggs and then just a little water just to get it to like the consistency of, like I said, a cake batter. And I would take them and I would put them on a cookie sheet. I would take a cookie sheet and I would spray it down with some kind of like oil. Nowadays I would use macadamia nut oil to lubricate it up. I put globs of this cake batter on the thing, and I would bake these things, and I would make cookies out of them. And they would have like 30 grams of protein per cookie. They had carbs and they had some fats in them from the whole eggs and from the oatmeal and raisins. And I would eat these things all night long while I studied, because I would study for 5 hours straight, 4 hours at night usually, for whatever classes I had in med school. But I would just eat these cookies nonstop, and I'd have like a big glass of water there just to keep everything lubricated. And I would do that, and I'm telling you, I probably grew better because it was so tasty, and it kept me awake. When you're eating things, you don't get tired. Once you stop eating, you start nodding off because your blood sugar drops. And that's how I got through med school.
Let's go to Emax. He says, Dave, in honor of your knowledge, he signed up to the Muscle Central Forum just to ask this question. He wants to know if it's a good idea to shoot some TB500 before or on the day of knee surgery to benefit from faster wound healing, or is there a reason to not do this?
Yeah, if you're going to get surgery, I don't think it's going to really do very much. Probably a shot of growth hormone when you get home after the surgery is probably way more effective than TB500. I know a lot of people have used it. I'm actually going to start trying it on for my shoulder pain. I got some from Boston. Lloyd's got a new peptide company, and he sent me some. I got to try it and see if it works. I've used it in the past. I don't know. I had mixed reviews, but I don't know if what I used was real. So I'm going to try some of it. To me, growth hormone is probably more potent, especially after surgery, because surgery with a cutting, GH is going to be a much better healing agent. Soft tissue injuries, however, seem to respond well to TB500, although, like I said, I don't have definitive proof yet. I'll have to let you know how it works on me.
Ben Becker wants to know, first of all, a long-time fan, and my question is, low or high test with tren? I see a lot of controversy on this subject.
I don't know why I get this question so much, especially recently. There's a lot of... it's funny. I'm going to diverge. Just remind me of where we left off yesterday, because I got someone, I'm not going to say which client of mine, one of my clients, very good, well-known client who's a pro now, he texted me that one of Matt Jansen's cronies, it wasn't Matt Jansen, who's a contest, a younger contest guru, was trying to, I guess, basically recruit him for Matt Jansen. He's like, oh, you got to go with Matt. He's a young guy. He's got all the secrets now. These new Dave and Chris Aceto, those guys, know what they're doing, but they're old school. There's no old school. Old school is just the right school, okay? New school is guys making up ridiculous stuff that just doesn't work. I mean, using 1,000 milligrams of trenbolone a week and 300 milligrams of testosterone because you think you can get less side effects from the testosterone is the most ignorant thing to possibly contemplate in your mind. Think about it. Trenbolone, if anything, has way more side effects in terms of raising blood pressure, being more kidney toxic because of the high blood pressure, irritability, raising anxiety levels, which obviously are not good for your cardiac health. So no one's rediscovering the wheel here, all right? Testosterone should always be the predominant hormone in the stack, okay? And it's also when you keep testosterone lower and raise the anabolics that you get these other unwanted side effects like high prolactin levels from DECA and trenbolone. And what does high prolactin cause? It kills your sex drive. And there's nothing worse than being a bodybuilder on a lot of steroids and you can't get it up. I mean, that's a big problem. Most people would consider that a reason not to use steroids, okay? So testosterone should be the basis of your stack, anywhere from 800 to 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a week. The anabolics should be more in the range of 200 to 600 milligrams, depending on which ones you're using. Trenbolone, 300 milligrams a week is plenty. You don't want to use more than that. EQ, DECA, you might use 600 milligrams a week. But the testosterone almost wants to be in a 2-to-1 ratio to your anabolics.
Let's go to Super Mario. Said I hate the show more than Dave hated on Lebroni's legs. Come on, he didn't really. Best way to grow a thicker chest for an ectomorph.
You know, people who have bad chest genetics have to be very crafty about the way they train their chest. You can't just go in there and watch Branch Warren doing these partial reps with like 1,000,000 pounds and think that if you do that same crazy, terrible form of heavy weight, you're going to grow pecs. Not going to happen. You have to be a technician. Okay, you need to find out what the best way to feel your pecs is. If you don't feel your chest working while you're training it, then you're wasting your time. If you feel it in your shoulders, front delts, your triceps, you're not targeting the muscle properly. You got to keep the elbows out to the side. You got to keep the chest up high. I would do mostly incline work. I wouldn't have the incline on the bench at more than 45 degrees. To me, 35-degree angle is perfect. I think 45 is almost too steep. So there's a lot of mistakes that people make, and without going into the gym and showing people the mistakes, it's hard to explain on a program like this what the best way to do it is. If you're taking anabolics, one of the tricks I used to do was I would fill up, draw up whatever oil I was going to use, testosterone for say. I would take a 1 cc insulin pen, I'd pull the plunger out, I'd put a cc into the syringe, and then I'd put a half cc in my upper inner pec on each side, right before I would train, maybe 20 minutes before I went to the gym. And what that enabled, doesn't cause localized muscle growth. What it enabled me to do is to feel it. It irritated the area, and it would enable me to have a better mind-muscle connection, okay, when I trained that muscle, and brought more blood in there and more swelling, and I just felt it better. The key is getting that mind, your brain, to link up with that pec muscle so that when you're training it, you're using your pec muscles. Most people that have weak chest and don't have good chest development don't feel their pecs when they're training, and that's a problem.
Let's go to Deuce or Dust 10. My calves won't grow now. Would painless pumps be the way to go? He doesn't really state whether he's been training them for a long time or not, what have you, but he wants to essentially know if painless pumps are a good option to grow his calves.
You know, it's interesting that he asked this question because I always had weak calves, and people think I'm crazy because when I go to the gym now, people are always like, oh, you got great calves. I'm like, I do? Now, obviously my legs are not as big as they were back then, so I think my calves look proportionally bigger than they were. But I had weak calves in comparison to my quads when I was competing. It was something that always drove me crazy. And I learned different techniques to train my calves, and we can go into that another time. But I will say I did use there wasn't painless pumps back in the day. I used the old Chris Clark, which I still sell on DavePalumbo.com, which is, I think, one of the most potent ones on the market versions. Chris Clark is the originator of of synthol, so to speak, of site injection oils. There's science in there. There's protein carriers in there. The stuff works in a scientific way. The only drawback behind the Chris Clarks was that it leaves you sore. So a lot of guys in calves don't want to inject things, into their calves and then not be able to walk around because they're walking like hobbling around. For arms, it's not as bad. You don't walk on your arms. The painless pumps, which is also owned by another friend of mine, Steve DeLuca, I also carry at DavePalumbo.com, is another great product because it doesn't hurt. So when you inject it into your calves, you don't you don't have to walk around sore. You might feel a little swelling in there, but you don't feel any pain. So I think it's a good option if you've exhausted all the training options and you just can't get them to grow. If people email me at huge285@AOL.com, I will give you the injection protocols that I designed for all the body parts. Well, some of the body parts. Some body parts should not be used. I created protocols for arms, calves, delts, the pecs, and then also for glutes for women. So if you email me at that email address, I will more than happily send you guys the free protocols. If you want to purchase the products, I sell it at DavePalumbo.com. And once again, if you follow the protocol, you're going to get good results and you're not going to look like an idiot. If you don't follow the protocol and you overdo it, it's going to look ridiculous. If you underdo it, you won't notice anything. So you got to follow the protocol.
Taking questions right now from our YouTube channel. Again, if you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, subscribe below. You're not going to miss any of our show segments, updates, especially now with the March to the 2017 Arnold Classic underway. We're going to be bringing you interviews with the top competitors, analysts, all sorts of analysis on the upcoming 2017 Arnold Classic. So subscribe below. You're not going to miss any.
Sid, I wanted to say one thing because I wanted to thank Quest Nutrition for stepping up to the plate. They're going to be sponsoring all of RxMuscle's Arnold 2017 coverage for that whole weekend. From the expo to the Hall of Fame ceremony we'll be taping, to the contest wrap-ups, the winner interviews, the athlete interviews, on the day before. The entire weekend will be sponsored by Quest Nutrition, and they have a sick booth coming out at the show. We'll be there covering it, and thanks to them, we will be there, our whole staff, covering the event as we always do. The technician, Chris Aceto, myself, Johnny, you, and of course our photographer. So I'm looking forward to that. That's the big show of the year, the first big show of the year, I should say. We got a great lineup this year. Obviously Cedric McMillan looking to win his first Arnold Classic. It might happen this year, it might not, because we have a very, very tough lineup. So that's going to be an exciting weekend, and that's coming up in less than a month now.
Crazy to think. So again, next week we're actually planning in an iron debate previewing the upcoming Arnold Classic. So again, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe and you're not going to miss any of these videos. Let's go to Jeff Barnes, still on our YouTube channel. Dave, what is the likelihood of the HGH that someone buys being bunk? Is there any potency with even Chinese HGH, or should people not even waste their money on Chinese HGH?
Yeah, this is a big problem, and I've been talking to my friend Bill Llewellyn to see if we can solve this problem. It's impossible right now to tell if the growth hormone you have is real growth hormone. We have, for steroids, we have the Roy test, which is a product that Bill Llewellyn developed. I sell it exclusively on DavePalumbo.com. I am the United States distributor of it. And basically it allows you to test all your anabolic steroids to see if they're real. Now, anyone out there who's using anabolic steroids that come from any place other than a pharmacy, if you haven't bought these kits and tested what you have, you're an idiot. Because you're spending a lot of money and you're putting the stuff into your body and you want to make, you're hoping it's going to work. It would be nice to know if what you got is real. Because you know what? I don't care what people tell you, what testing they had done on it, where it came from. If it didn't come from an American pharmacy, you do not know if what you have is real. So you must test it. Okay, these testers are very cheap compared to what you're spending on the gear itself. Go to Dave Palumbo, get the tester, and test your gear. Trust me, you will thank me. You know how many people contacted me and said, hey, Dave, you know what? I've been using this stuff for 3 months and it was fake. I didn't even know it. Thank God I bought those tests and checked it out. Now, if we had a growth hormone test for that, that would solve a lot of problems. But Bill is working on one. It's a little harder because protein hormones are not as easy to detect. Having said that, which ones out there are good? I don't know. That's the problem. There's no way to know for sure. The only way to know for sure is to use real pharmacy grade GH, and you can tell if something's in a little pen, where you have to put the water in the powder and you push this. No one's faking those, okay? Because they're too expensive to fake. It's cheaper to just go buy the real ones than make your own. If it's in a little generic vial, more than likely it could be fake. That's why a lot of the Chinese stuff is not good. It's not full dosage. People are getting mixed results with it. You get people using pharma grade. I know guys who are spending a lot of money on pharma grade, and I said, look, you know what? If it's costing you more, take less of it. Who cares? You don't need a lot of it. The reason why guys take so much today is probably because half the stuff is fake. If you take 2-3 IUs of real pharma grade growth hormone, you're going to feel it, and it's going to give you enough of an effect that you're not going to need to take more than that. Do some guys take 18 IUs of real GH a day? Yeah, but I think it's overkill, and I think it's a waste of money.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Right now, taking questions from our YouTube channel, Shelox23 or Shelox23. Dave, big fan from Spain. Which is the best peptides for sleeping better during the night?
I wouldn't say necessarily that there are any peptides that I've used that have helped me sleep better. I do think that there are certain natural supplements that work really well to help you sleep. GABA is fantastic at making you fall asleep, relaxing you. It has a Valium-like effect. The reason it does is because Valium, Xanax, those drugs stimulate GABA receptors in the brain. And when you stimulate GABA receptors, you cause relaxation. Melatonin is another compound that's great at helping you stay asleep and in a deep state of sleep, more REM sleep. 3 milligrams before bed is perfect. I have a product out I call Somalize. It's my nighttime, fat burner and sleep aid. And you take 3 pills 20 minutes before bed, and you'll get a great night's sleep. I always take it when I travel. So when I came back from California, I took it for a week and a half. I had the best night's sleeps of my life. I was in such deep sleep. I woke up so well rested. I don't use it all the time because I don't like to become dependent on anything. But man, do I love it when I take melatonin and GABA together. I get a great synergism.
Harry, Denny, Dave, I've been diagnosed with tendinitis in my right knee. What do you suggest to help with this?
The first thing I do when I have any type of tendinitis type injuries, I always I usually forget what I should be doing. But the thing I should be doing is calling up an ART practitioner, active release techniques. ART is a therapy that applies pressure to the muscles while you're moving your muscles through their natural range of motion, and it strips scar tissue and adhesions off these muscles, enabling them to move properly. Because usually tendinitis is caused by some kind of an injury that occurred in the area to the muscles. They stick together, they don't move right, and they move in the wrong plane of motion, and they rub the tendons against some sort of bony aspect of your body. And that's what causes tendinitis, that repetitive rubbing of the tendon on the bone. If we can restore the muscles back to their normal movements, that rubbing will stop and it will cease, and then the area will heal itself. So ART restores that relatively quickly. And having said that, you could ice injuries that have tendinitis on them. You could take compounds like DECA to reduce the inflammation. You can even go for a cortisone shot, which I don't recommend because it's catabolic. However, that's not going to solve the problem. You want to figure out why you have the tendinitis, whether it's a weird exercise you're doing, whether you're holding a baby in your arm all day long like I do, or whatever the case may be. You got to figure out what's causing it. ART practitioners usually do that. Sometimes you can go for a massage. The massage therapist, if he's really good or she's really good and they're intuitive, could get to the bottom of the injury. But ART practitioners seem to be the best in my mind.
We had a question, I guess would be somewhat similar. All right, Jimmy J, supplements to help a bulge disc. Would a good joint product help, or something would be, or another product would be better?
A bulging disc is you have this vertebral column where your spinal cord runs through it, and then you have these little discs that you basically are balancing your whole body on. If these discs bulge a little bit or pop out of place, they can put pressure onto the nerve there, and that can cause pain. It can cause tingling in your fingers or legs. It can cause discomfort. It can cause loss of function there. There's a number of things that can go wrong. Okay, when you have a bulging disc, the problem is that how do you fix it? I mean, chiropractic manipulations can help. Massage therapy can help. Stretching a lot. I'm a big advocate of stretching, especially when you get older, because a lot of people lose flexibility, and there's no way a disc is going back in if you're not flexing. I've sometimes, just from stretching on the floor, have popped, little vertebral, things back in place. I hear a pop, 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 and all of a sudden I feel great. So stretching definitely helps a lot. As far as what supplements you can take, supplements are good at repairing connective tissue, collagen, cartilage, tendons, ligaments, but they're not going to put a bulging disc back in place. Okay, that's more therapeutic.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not following us on Instagram, our handle is at @official_RxMuscle. Let's go to Caleb Grits. Dave, this show sucks so bad I'd rather take financial advice from Steve Bleckman's accountant than have to listen to this rubbish. Now, in the season and run to the Olympia, is there a competitor in your mind that can dethrone Phil Heath, even if Phil brings his A game, or is it too early to tell?
Well, there's no one coming out of the woodwork that we don't know about. Okay, so you have to think that Sean Roden is always a very dangerous threat to Phil. He's come in second behind him twice before. Here's a guy who, can ostensibly, if Phil is off, come in and win. If Phil's on, hard for Roden to beat him. Now, having said that, there's a guy in the lineup who's got more size than anyone else, who's got freaky genetics, who's exciting, who's one of the guys we've been talking about nonstop the last couple of years. That's Big Ramy. Big Ramy's the wild card. He can come in and overwhelm Phil size-wise, and I think that's why he could beat him if he ever came in at his best. The problem with Ramy, as we discussed this past week, is that he keeps switching contest coaches. First he was with Dennis James, then he was with Bader. Or I think he was with Bader first, then he was with Dennis James, then he was back to Bader, then he went to George, then he went to Chris, then from Chris he went to George Farah, went back to Chris. Chris had a good run with him this past year in 2016. Now he's back with Bader. Okay, Bader, who I spoke to on the phone, who owns Bader Badai, I'm talking about, who owns Oxygen Gym, claims that Ramy has not been with Chris ever since the prejudging ended at the Olympia. He didn't like the way he looks, and supposedly the Middle East crew there took over his preparations for the rest of the European tour and the rest of the Olympia. Whether that's true or not, who the hell knows? The bottom line is that Ramy is the wild card in this Olympia lineup. If he can come in looking ridiculous and Phil is just a little bit off, I think Ramy could be the next Mr. Olympia. I think he's got that potential. I don't think there's anyone else in the lineup who can do that. Not this year, at least.
Dave, yesterday you did a video on whether or not supplement sponsorships make sense for supplement companies, and you highlighted the fact that Sean Roden, who is the 2016 Mr. Olympia runner-up, was without a supplement contract. We're getting a lot of questions. Word is, or fans want to know, if Flex Lewis, the defending 212 champ, if he has left BSN, his longtime supplement sponsor.
Yeah, that's the word on the street. I saw a press release, according to himself, Flex Lewis, that he left BSN on good terms, which tells me that he obviously has some kind of business venture of his own that he's plotting, because I don't see why else he would have left. I'm sure he's making good money with them. I heard rumors that maybe he's starting his own line of products, which I don't know if that would be a great idea while he's competing, but if he's got backers behind him putting up the money and he's not risking his own, it could be a good idea. Chris Aceto and I have talked about this before. If you're banking over $200,000 a year on a company, and I don't know if Flex is or not, you're crazy to leave that, to give that paycheck up, because that's money in the bank that you have to do nothing for except show up. And so I don't know what I know Flex does very well financially for himself. He's got a lot of business ventures, that parallel his bodybuilding lifestyle. So maybe he didn't need the money, and he said, you know what, I want to do something on my own, and I want to have control of my own destiny. Look, it sucks being a business owner because you have a lot of stress on you. I know, because I own several companies, but it's also nice to know that you're your own boss. So if you can, run a good business and you can focus on it, even while you're competing, then I say, hey, good luck, Flex Lewis. Hopefully it'll work out well for him, and he's a pretty smart, shrewd guy, so I'm assuming he probably knows what he's doing.
Sean Mott 86, Dave, when and how did you come up with a theory of changing long-acting compounds every 6 to 8 weeks when traditionally they run for longer?
I like to do that just because I find the anabolics, testosterone never really stops working in the body. The anabolics tend to stagnate after about 6 to 8 weeks, meaning that I believe that the receptors start recognizing it too much and maybe downregulate a little to these compounds. If you switch up the anabolic agents like Decker and Equipoise and Dianabol and Masteron and Winstrol, if you mix these up every 6 weeks, it seems like they attach to a different part of the androgen receptor, and you seem to get better results. That's just my empirical, experience. Being a bodybuilder, using the stuff myself, and then working with other athletes I find that when we change them up, they get better results. It's funny because a lot of times guys will go for 6 weeks on one compound, then they switch over to the next set of compounds, and literally like in a week, they either gain or lose a tremendous amount of weight. And it just goes to show you that certain compounds do certain things and other compounds do other things. So the body will change that quickly when you do change these compounds. So that tells me that we're shocking the body, and that's good. We always want to keep the body on its toes. When the body catches on to what you're doing, it usually stops making progress.
We had a question earlier on about chest training. We have another one from Charon_35. Dave, for years, I've been told that decline bench doesn't get you chest benefits, so I usually only work incline or flat. But this week, Guy Cisternino mentioned about 3 times that decline is the best way to build a big chest. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of declines. First of all, I don't really like benching when your head is almost upside down at your body. All the blood is kind of rushing to your head. I've done declines in the past. I don't do a lot of them. I never did a lot of them. To me, all chest movements should be upper pec movements. In other words, you really can't isolate one part of your chest, but you can preferentially target one part of it. So if you're doing, bench pressing on a 35-degree angle, you're going to work a lot of your upper pec, and that's usually where people are weak. I never saw anyone who's weak in their lower pecs. The guys who think they're weak in their lower pecs, what they really have is gynecomastia. They have glandular tissue that it needs to be removed. Once that's removed, I never see anyone who has a weaker lower chest than upper chest. Okay, as long as your upper chest is bigger than your lower chest, it's going to look good, and that's how I usually direct people to do their training. Mostly incline work, some flat, on occasion just to shock the body up, some decline work. Not a lot, though.
Rawai Abdullah wants to know, in a ketogenic diet, should I prevent consuming a fat source with my post-workout protein meal during a cutting phase?
When you're dieting on a ketogenic diet, which means you're eating less than 50 grams of carbs a day, the goal is not to build muscle. The goal is to maintain the muscle you have. If you eat carbs with your post-workout shake, you will not be in ketosis. And I talked about this in my rant I did the other day about ketogenic diets. The term ketosis means that your brain is using ketones or fats for fuel. That's all it means. Your brain will not use ketones or fats for fuel if you eat carbs. Even if you only eat them once a day, your brain will not give up sugar. It's like a heroin addict who gets a little bit of heroin every day. He's never going to be detoxed from the heroin. Your brain is addicted to sugar. It's got to get off it for 72 hours straight, so it'll switch its metabolism, and then as long as you're not eating, direct sources of starchy carbs, your brain will stay in ketosis, and that's the key. You don't worry about post-workout nutrition. And a lot of people don't understand. The body will recover and rebuild muscle, in response to a post-workout protein source. A post-workout carbohydrate source merely reglycogenates the muscle, meaning it puts the glucose back into the muscle as stored glycogen. It does not build muscle. It just restores glycogen. So it's not necessary to the process. Does it help you recover in the off season? Absolutely, because you're putting glycogen in faster. But as from a muscle repair and building standpoint, the carbohydrates do not do anything to the muscle building process.
Let's go to Brandon Lizert 93. How far out do you think someone making a weight class should be at their class weight? How many days out?
I have guys, sometimes they make weight the day of the weigh-in, so it depends. Some guys are, 187 and they got to make 176, and you can't bring them down to weight 3 days out because no one's going to be able to hold it. It's not smart. When I come up with my strategy to get a guy down to a weight class, there's a lot of thinking that goes into that decisions of how I'm going to have him do it. Add this, take away that, put this in there, take this diuretic. there's a method to the madness. I can't explain it because each person is different. A lot of people hire me on my website for last week of contest prep because they don't know how to do these things. They don't know how to make the weight properly without looking like crap or screwing themselves up. So for $100, they hire me, and I completely customize that last week, telling them what to eat, when to eat it. They send me updates every single day the last week, and we get them into the show, and they make the weight, and everything goes well. It's not a hard process, but it's very hard to advise yourself if you've never done it before.
Take a couple of more questions. Nuno 146, Dave, would taking glutamine aid in recovery from muscle soreness after training, or are there other alternatives?
No. Glutamine is going to do nothing. Save your money. Never buy glutamine, okay? Because glutamine does not do anything. As a matter of fact, if you take too much glutamine while you're dieting, it could increase insulin output in your body, which is not good, which is a fat storage hormone. So glutamine is probably the most overused supplement on the market that actually does nothing, okay? The only thing glutamine is good for is if you have a compromised intestinal tract, your colon is not good, you might have some colitis or something like that. It's really good at rebuilding your intestinal tract. A lot of the intestinal cells like glutamine, okay? It's got healing properties to it. Other than that, for muscle building properties, it's got none. Don't waste your money. And as a matter of fact, if you take too much glutamine, like I said before, it might just make the situation worse.
We're actually getting quite a few questions about your prison book, the prison workout book. They want to know the origination behind the book and where they can get it.
My Perfect Prison Physique book, I wrote the last 3 weeks I was in prison. Someone said you should write a prison book. And I guess at that point I had been in there for 4 months, so I kind of had a lot of experience on what kind of foods they have in there, what kind of weight training they have in there, how you can go about doing things in prison in terms of cooking the stuff you want, and how to work out, and all this other stuff, and all the prison jargon. I made a whole vocabulary list because there's prison words. I don't even remember them anymore. All I remember is they call the guys that you work out with your car. Your car means who's in your car is who's your training partners, So I put all this together with pictures. I even have pictures from prison when I was in there of some of the guys I was in there with. I have a foreword by Rick Collins wrote for me of Legal Muscle. And one of the guys I was good friends with in there, Scott Tucker, wrote also an introduction in the book. It's available at DavePalumbo.com. And Jerry Beck did the cover. It's a great picture. I said, I want a picture of a crazy-looking bodybuilder breaking out of a jail cell. So a lot of guys order it for friends of theirs that are in jail or in prison. If you just want a hardcore training type manual of prison-like training, you can buy it too. We sell a lot of them. I still sell it. I wrote it 10 years ago, and I still sell, a couple hundred of them a year. So it is available at DavePalumbo.com. It's pretty cheap. I think it's like $20 or something like that.
We have Rishi Dats, please, asking where he can get Species products in Australia.
Global Nutrition is our distributor there right now. They have a product. They can, if you want to call them up. A lot of the stores, they distribute to all the stores there. A lot of the stores there carry it all throughout Australia. I know our good friend Chris and Renee Schmidt at their new store, Bodybuilding Nation, I think they're calling it now. It used to be Mass Nutrition. Now it's called Bodybuilding Nation. Their store carries it for sure. They have all our products there. So, and they're in Penrith. But if you call Global Nutrition, they can tell you, where they distribute to, and you can find out who has our products.
That is going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave. Coming up, I don't know, Dave, are we going to do this live, or is it going to be available tomorrow? You and John Romano are going to do Iron Rage on a wacky story which involved a wife poisoning her husband's gear using antifreeze, I believe, or windshield fluid. Is that going to be live, or is that going to be recorded for tomorrow?
I think we're going to do it live right after this show. We're going to go. John Romano and I are going to go live as soon as we get you off the line, and we're going to talk about this lunatic who poisoned her husband's steroids, of all things. Can you imagine that? What a nightmare that was.
So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com. Iron Rage is next for Johnny Styles and Dave Palumbo. I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you in about 10 minutes.